You don't have a warrant.
Where is it? Where is it?
No, you don't.
Where's it?
No, you don't. Show me. Show me right now.
Where's the warrant at?
No. Show me the warrant right now.
We're not gonna let her go.
Yo, get your hands on my mom. What? No, what's the warrant?
No.
Please. No, where's the warrant? Show me first.
Where's it?
Show me first. No.
Come on, can you call the
We have a right.
Can you call the police, please?
Hey guys, wow. You wake up to the sound of heavy boots echoing across concrete, the crunch of gravel under tires, the rustle of zip ties being readied. It's not a movie set, not a drill, just another Thursday in South Seattle. At 5:27 a.m., long before the sun touches the skyline, 5 black SUVs roll silently into a cul-de-sac. No lights, no sirens. The agents are already masked. Balaclavas stretched tight over tired eyes. You wouldn't even know they were law enforcement, if not for the tactical vests. They surround the home of a man named Camilo Perez. He's undocumented, works 2 jobs, no priors. His daughter Rosa turns 9 today. There are balloons taped to the living room window, and still boom, the front door doesn't survive the battering ram. Neither does the family's sense of safety. ICE claims they had a tip, ongoing risk to a minor, but no police report was ever filed. No child welfare case was opened. No neighbor had ever complained. The charge? Child endangerment, used here as a warrant shortcut. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from, and let's go on the journey of today's story together. The street watches in silence. You do too from behind your screen, heart clenching as Rosa stands in a unicorn nightgown, clutching a stuffed koala. Camilo, still in boxers, is pinned to the ground by a man he can't identify. The agent doesn't speak. He just tightens the zip cuffs and walks away. Rosa screams. A neighbor films it, uploads it, and within hours, 1 million views. A headline, ICE masked agents detain father, cite abuse, provide no proof. Oh, and the odd fact, according to ICE.gov's July incident log, an entire team was simultaneously rerouted from a fentanyl trafficking op to join this child welfare emergency. Apparently, priorities change fast. Operation Safe Haven, that's what ICE calls it in the internal memo leaked to ProPublica 2 days later. Safe for whom? You're still asking. The operation targeted suspected abuse households in sanctuary jurisdictions, a phrase that chills more than it clarifies. In reality, this was a coordinated move against Seattle families who were undocumented but had otherwise lived unremarkable, lawful lives. ICE spokesperson Edward Del Valle said in a Reuters interview that child endangerment is a non-negotiable red line. But when pressed on how many of the 18 arrests involved open abuse cases, he said the information was classified due to ongoing investigations. You raise an eyebrow, because according to Seattle CPS, none of the families involved were under active review, and not one had been reported through the state's child abuse hotline. So how did ICE justify its entry? A little-known loophole. In 2020, the Trump administration quietly rewrote internal enforcement guidelines to allow field agents to declare a protective sweep without a warrant if they believe a minor is in immediate danger. The problem? Belief isn't evidence. And Seattle, which reaffirmed its sanctuary city status in 2023, prohibits local police from assisting ICE without a signed judicial warrant. ICE doesn't need one, only a risk profile. What is a risk profile? You don't get a straight answer, but buried deep in a wired security piece, you find something surreal. ICE has been using an AI tool based on facial recognition and public records to pre-flag domestic instability. That includes multiple children in one household, recent financial hardship, or even complaints about noisy pets. You laugh, and then you don't. Because it's not funny when masked men use an algorithm to decide which child's birthday ends in handcuffs. Meanwhile, a fringe blog reposts the footage with the headline, "Hero Agents Save Girl from Illegal Dad." Commenters debate whether Rosa's tears are real or coached. And ICE's official site quietly adds a sentence to its press release. Operation Safe Haven has successfully disrupted potential abuse environments in the Puget Sound region. But who exactly is being protected? You don't forget Rosa's face. Neither do her teachers. On Monday, she shows up to school late, alone, gripping a sheet of notebook paper with her dad's ICE identification number scribbled on it in blue pen. She doesn't talk much that day. But when Miss Hawthorne, her fourth grade teacher, asks why she missed her birthday party, Rosa says, "The men in black took my dad because he made my eggs too hot." That's all she remembers. That morning, Camilo had burned the eggs. She cried. He hugged her and made toast instead. That's it. That's the abuse. And that's the story ICE used to justify breaching a home before sunrise, zip-tying a man in his underwear, and traumatizing a little girl on her 9th birthday. Camilo's story unravels through court filings. A single anonymous phone call to ICE's tip line, a system known to accept non-verified, even prank reports, triggered a chain of decisions that ended in black balaclavas and smashed door frames. No CPS follow-up. No local police involvement. Just an unchecked federal power claiming to protect children while refusing to name its sources. You remember a separate ICE case you once read about, maybe back in 2019. A man was deported based on mistaken identity because someone else with his name had a traffic violation in Arizona. It took 3 years for him to return. The ICE agent involved? Promoted. The mistake? Buried in administrative paperwork. Now Rosa visits Camilo in the Tacoma Northwest Detention Center every Sunday. He's been there 6 weeks without formal charges, under pending deportation review. Rosa brings drawings, hearts, rainbows, and once a picture of the masked man she calls the Ghost. He's always scribbled in gray. No eyes. Outside the facility, volunteers from a local immigrant aid group hand out sandwiches and soft toys. One whispers to you, "We're not just fighting ICE. We're fighting a culture that treats brown families like they're disposable." You nod and something hard settles in your stomach. Disposable. That's the word you didn't want to say but can't ignore. You start digging through track data late at night when sleep feels impossible. You're hoping to find anomalies. What you uncover instead is a pattern. In the past fiscal year alone, ICE has conducted 6,448 enforcement actions in Washington state. Of those, over 48% involved individuals with no criminal convictions. That's not speculation. That's a hard number from Syracuse University's Track Immigration Project. Dig deeper and it gets worse. Of the raids justified under child welfare, nearly 70% involve no documented child abuse, endangerment, or neglect. What ICE calls protective action, others call family separation dressed in paperwork. You scroll further, heart sinking. A DHS whistleblower tells the New York Times that the Seattle field office has accelerated child endangerment designations to satisfy internal metrics, particularly since the border is less porous and deportation quotas must now be met inland. Then there's the memo quietly leaked, shared by The Intercept, in which ICE leadership outlines target yield expectations. You stare at it. Bullet point 5 reads, "Family units yield media leverage. Apply moral narrative when possible. Protect minors from exposure, but ensure visible detention of guardian." That's not law enforcement. That's a PR strategy. But ICE isn't alone in this. Local agencies know what's happening. A recent internal email from a Seattle police liaison, obtained through a public records request, says, "Keep distance from Friday operation." Optics not ideal. Counselors already hostile. They knew, and still they did nothing. You also notice something strange. In a separate ICE release dated July 2025, agents in Florida accidentally detained a naturalized citizen who had called in a noise
asylum
complaint.
seeker.
When asked how it happened, ICE replied, "System error." System error again and again. But people aren't keystrokes.
Asylum seeker.
Rosa isn't a glitch. You try to make sense of the numbers, but it's not about numbers.
CP1 while
It's
you're
about
doing
narratives, about who gets to decide what's legal, what's dangerous, and what's worth protecting. ICE claims they're saving children, but every week more kids show up to class with trauma in their drawings and silence in their throats. And all the while, the masks stay on. You pause and ask yourself the uncomfortable question. What if they were right? What if one of those families was dangerous? What if Camilo really had hurt Rosa? Shouldn't the government act swiftly to protect kids, even at the risk of violating sanctuary laws? That's the argument ICE supporters will make and do. Fox News ran a segment titled, "ICE Saves Children While Cities Shield Abusers." In it, a panelist compares sanctuary cities to safe houses for child predators. You flinch. It's not just offensive, it's calculated. One viral tweet from a known right-wing commentator reads, "If Seattle won't protect its kids, ICE will." Underneath, 40,000 likes, thousands of retweets. The narrative sticks. But what they don't mention are the audits, the ones that show ICE rarely coordinates with child welfare departments before these raids. That in 87% of child safety cases, there's no collaboration with local CPS, no follow-up, no support for the supposedly endangered children, just the raid, the arrest, and the aftermath left for teachers, neighbors, and nonprofits to deal with. Then there's the counter-argument, what you feel in your gut. That child protection must never be a smokescreen for political theater. That when federal agents wear masks, storm homes, and traumatize children based on anonymous tips, what they're practicing isn't safety, it's spectacle. It's deterrence by drama. You read an op-ed in The Guardian that frames it this way. To protect a child, you must first believe they are human. ICE seems to protect them only as props. That line sticks with you, because Rosa isn't a statistic. She's not a symbol. She's a little girl who drew the man who hurt her, and the man wasn't her dad. Meanwhile, ICE remains silent on Rosa's case. No statement, no apology. Camilo's court date is postponed again, another week in limbo. And you start to wonder, what would justice look like, really? Is it possible to protect the vulnerable without destroying the innocent? What's the line between enforcement and cruelty? You don't have the answer. But you know who does. Rosa does. You see the ripple before you hear the splash. 2 days after the video of Rosa's dad goes viral, protests erupt outside Seattle City Hall. Not just immigrant rights groups this time. Teachers, doctors, clergy, even firefighters show up. One holds a sign that reads, "Child Welfare Terror." The image spreads fast. National media picks it up. And then something unexpected happens. A city council member, Leticia Morales, demands an emergency session. She slams ICE's use of child welfare as a warrant bypass, calling it institutional kidnapping under the banner of law. Her voice cracks as she describes watching the raid footage, pointing out that Camilo is still in custody with no official charge. This is not protection, she says. This is propaganda. The chamber erupts in applause, but the fire spreads further. That same night, someone leaks body cam footage to a local radio station, unedited, 14 minutes long. You watch it and wish you hadn't. The agents joke outside Camilo's door. One says, "Bet we'll find a meth lab." Another replies, "Or Dora the Explorer if she screams." They laugh. When the footage hits social media, even people who usually stay quiet speak up. A former ICE agent, now retired, tweets, "This isn't how we were trained. We're creating trauma, not safety." It gets 250,000 likes. Then Rosa's school publishes a letter. It's signed by 27 staff. It reads, "No child should arrive to class in fear that their parent has disappeared. We are educators, not trauma counselors. Enough." ICE responds with a single sentence. The agency does not comment on active investigations, but silence only fuels the outrage. Donations flood into local immigrant aid groups. Volunteers double. Anonymous sources in DHS say agents are being reassigned quietly. Seattle blew up in their face, one says. And Camilo? He's still waiting in Tacoma. But now, the spotlight's on him, on Rosa, on the mask. One protester says it best. They tried to hide behind black cloth, but we're not blind anymore. You keep thinking about the mask. It's such a simple thing, a piece of fabric stretched across the face, yet it carries so much weight. Power, fear, anonymity. You remember when Rosa drew it in gray with no eyes. You remember what that meant. Because a masked man is not just unseen, he is unaccountable. You recall other masks, riot police in Ferguson, federal agents in Portland, even pandemic masks, back when fear was viral and confusion reigned. But this mask? This one's different. It wasn't meant for safety. It was meant for silence, for hiding identity, erasing empathy. It said, "I'm not a person. I'm a tool. Don't look at me. Look at what I'm doing." And maybe that's the point. When no one's face is visible, no one's responsible. ICE says the masks protect their agents from retaliation. But who protects Rosa? Philosophers call this diffused moral agency. It's when systems blur the line between choice and command, when good people do bad things because the structure tells them it's necessary. Hannah Arendt called it the banality of evil. The idea that ordinary folks, desk clerks, and soldiers alike can commit atrocities simply by following orders. You wonder if the agent who cuffed Camilo went home that day and tucked his own kid into bed. If he thought about the girl in the unicorn pajamas. if the laughter outside the house lingered in his ears when the night grew quiet. Seattle is still reeling. The council proposes new legislation, a citywide ICE visibility ordinance. No more unmarked vehicles. No more masks. If you're arresting people in our neighborhoods, they say, you show your face. But you know it's deeper than visibility. It's about truth. If institutions can cloak themselves in anonymity, in technicalities and buzzwords like child endangerment, then what hope does democracy have? You stare at Rosa's drawing again. And it hits you not just sadness, but clarity. The real danger isn't a masked man in black. It's the system that lets him walk away unseen, unquestioned, unchanged. You're here now, at the end of the story. But it's not really an ending, is it? Camilo's still waiting. Rosa's still sketching her dreams in black and gray. ICE agents still gear up in silence before dawn. You sit with that discomfort, knowing that knowledge alone doesn't change things, action does. So here's what you can do. First, share this story. Not just the video, but Rosa's name, Camilo's voice, the masked agent's laughter. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your city council rep. Make sure people know that child endangerment can be a tactic, not a truth. Because if ICE can use kids as a wedge, tomorrow they'll use anything. Don't let trauma become strategy. Second, act locally. Seattle's proposed ICE visibility ordinance could become a blueprint nationwide. Push for it where you live. Contact your city's leaders. Ask them where they stand. Demand transparency, not masks. Third, support those on the front lines. Organizations like La Resistencia, ACLU Immigrants' Rights, and the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project are already in the fight. Donate, volunteer, show up, and don't forget the emotional front. Teachers like Miss Hawthorne, who held Rosa's hand that Monday morning, neighbors who filmed the raid, artists who sketched the moment. They're the ones rewriting this story not with badges or uniforms, but with empathy and action. You remember one more thing. An ICE officer, off the record, once told a reporter at The Independent, "We know it's wrong, but the machine moves and we're gears." That line haunts you because it reminds you that systems don't change themselves. People do. So be that person. Be the gear that slips, that stalls the engine. Be the hand that pulls the mask away, because somewhere tonight, another little girl is waking up to quiet boots on her front porch. And this time, maybe if we're loud enough, they'll stay outside. Now take a breath. You've made it through the noise, the shadows, the outrage. Let it settle. Let your heartbeat slow. The lights are still on, but the story's taken a softer turn. Rosa's safe for now. Her dad is waiting, but not forgotten. And that's something. That's where hope lives, in the remembering. You think about the quiet after the raid, the humming silence of an emptied living room, the balloons still taped to the window. One of them deflates slowly, its skin wrinkling like an old memory. That's what injustice does. It leaves traces in the air long after the noise fades. But so does resistance. One poster, one protest, one drawing of a ghost with no eyes. It starts there. Not loud, not angry, just persistent. Like water finding cracks in concrete, like truth demanding to be seen. So wherever you are listening, in your car, your kitchen, your break room at work, know this. You matter in this story. You're not a spectator. You're the storyteller now. Tell it wisely. Tell it often. Tell it until the masks fall off, and the world has no choice but to look.